welcome back to KCAA Radio, International Wealth Builders Association. I'm your host, Toya Tillett, with my special guest here, my auntie, Dr. Tameka Bryant. Before we went to commercial break, she was just telling us a little bit of how she got started and, getting into real estate almost by accident. So, starting off by subleasing properties in NYC. So now we're back. So, auntie, what was your, like you said, your driving force was because you didn't want to be a 50-year-old renter. So take us into how you ended up getting your real estate license and then becoming a broker.
Yeah, so let's see. My background was in nonprofit management.
Mm-hmm.
So in New York, that's what I did. I worked in a Boys and Girls Club, actually.
Okay.
And early on, at 18, 19, 20, I was writing grants.
Wow.
I know it sounds really weird, but I started learning how to write grants when I was 13 because I was actually managing paperwork as an assistant to the grant writer in that organization. And so me
13?
being that kind of, I'm inquisitive. I want to know everything. I want to know how to break it down. I started from the reports and then matching the reports to what the deliverables were and all those other things. And before I knew it, I was this grant writer.
Oh, wow.
And I was implementing programs. So I knew how to write a program to match a grant as well. So early on, that's what happened. And then the national organization recruited me at the age of 22, I believe it was, to the first time they came to recruit me to move to Atlanta to their corporate office.
Wow.
And if you can imagine a 22-year-old, and I'm like, I don't think so. So I turned them down 2 years in a row.
Wow.
And I just was like, I'm not ready to leave New York. I'm 22. Like, who leaves New York to go to Georgia, right?
It's a lot slower, I know that.
Yeah, a lot slower. And also, my dad is from Macon, Georgia.
Okay.
And he always told me, like, don't ever go back. Like, don't go to the South. Like, you're not going to like it. And so I had that in my head, too.
Okay.
But he hadn't been to the new Atlanta, kind of a thing. It's like, oh, no, Dad, Macon is definitely different than Atlanta. So to make a long story short, I was recruited out to that organization in Atlanta. And then another organization recruited me from Atlanta to Kansas City.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So this organization wowed us. It would mean it would be less travel for me.
Mm-hmm.
I would be able to be home with my kids and hubby and all that kind of stuff. Gave hubby a job. All these great stuff happened.
Mm-hmm.
And everything was going great for 2.5 years. And then on March 23rd, 2004,
Wow.
I went into the office and I was terminated at 9 a.m. and my husband was terminated at 10 a.m.
Oh my gosh, that is so crazy. How did that make y'all feel? Like, that's such a crushing blow. Like,
yes, a crushing blow to say the least, because that particular weekend we were on a high and a low at the same time.
Mhm.
So you have to understand that during that weekend was my son and daughter's combined birthday.
Oh.
And we had flew my mom into town for their birthday party.
Wow.
The sad part was that we knew she was dying of cancer.
Mm.
And so we knew this was going to be the last time we saw her.
Mhm.
And so I kind of was happy and sad at the same time. So I went into the office that Monday to do that. And for those who are sitting here who are like, oh, I have this job and it's my safe zone, and that safety net, and that's why
Right.
you won't do something else. That's what I thought I had. I thought I had a safety net.
Mhm.
And to have a safety net pulled from underneath, not just you, one income, but the entire household
Wow.
income, and in a city where you didn't know anyone, and with 2 little kids under the age of 10, and everything else, and we had no other place to go. Where we were going to
Wow.
go? My mom was dying of cancer. My dad was already deceased.
Wow.
My husband's dad was already deceased. It's like, where are we going? We're not. The only option we had at that point was if we left, that we would have to move back to New York
Mhm.
and live with my husband's mother.
Mm.
So my mother-in-law.
Okay.
So to the folks who were in the things, that was a no, and I had to figure it out.
That would be a hard no for me.
Yeah, that was a hard no. So after I was depressed for about 30 days, and my husband's, he's just the most optimistic, praying, oh no, it'll all work out. And I'm going, how? How is it going to work out? It's like, it's not going to work if we don't do something. And so he says, look, you have all these skills from over here and all of this. But, the other part of that, guys, is that I was planning on suing that employer.
Mm.
So I did not want to go into another 9 to 5 and take that baggage with me.
Right.
And also because that employer was very connected. So I didn't
Oh.
know what was going to happen. So he just said, hey, you're used to running everybody else's business. Go start your own. And that's what I did. So on May 14th, 2004,
Mm-hmm.
I went to my attorney formed my company called the Real Estate House.
Oh, okay.
And so that's when the Real Estate House was
So
formed,
like
was
10
in May
days later.
2005. No.
Oh. Oh,
May.
May. Oh,
I
okay.
was
It's a couple
I was
months later.
terminated in March.
Okay, March. So you had a couple
Right.
months.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I had a couple of months. That's why I said I needed 30 days to cry and weep. And this was the only thing I had ever prepared myself, the industry I prepared myself to be in forever.
Right.
I didn't plan on being in real estate. I could see real estate as some income that I wanted, but never to operate a brokerage.
Wow.
Oh my goodness, no. And although I kept saying when I retire, I'm going to retire on the beach and sell real estate or something that seems like fun,
Right.
but no. I fell into I have to grind and replace six-figure incomes
Ugh.
in a city that I didn't know.
I couldn't imagine. Oh my gosh, that sounds so scary. Like the average person probably would have just crumbled, and that just would have
Yeah.
been the end of their story right
Yeah.
there. But you persevered and you pushed through, and you ended up owning your own brokerage. And then, how many offices did you open up after that?
Well, I started with that one, and that started in my house at that living room table.
Mm-hmm.
And I started doing research, Latoya, which is why I tell folks you have to do research because there's always an out, there's always an option. But when you are in a panic situation,
Mm-hmm.
it's hard to see that.
Yep.
And I got on the ground and I found a grant from the city to do a facade on a building.
Okay.
And once I found that, I was like, well, if I can get someone to give me a loan, now I have money to fix up the outside of the property.
Okay.
And, I don't have to pay for that. So I started putting these resources together.
Nice.
And I found a building that was zone C2 so that I could live in this building because my mind is saying, if it all goes by the wayside and I can't figure this out, we can at least move into this building and still have an office.
That's
The
smart.
kids are small enough, the things. And so that's what I did. I brought that piece of real estate. I had the worst contractors
Oh my gosh.
that I could ever find. And I remember looking at my husband and he said, you know what, I'm going to run point on the contractors.
Okay.
And my husband is not the handy one at all.
Okay.
So he wasn't then. He is now because he was forced to do it.
Right.
My husband has a background in phys ed, and he was a coach, basketball coach.
Oh, okay. Oh, cool.
And so no things, but I was the handy one because of my dad. My dad did everything from fix
Okay.
cars to build furniture and that kind of thing.
Right.
So so that's how I started, opened up that first office, and then it was just 2 years of putting my head down and just grind.
Wow.
Everything I made went back into the business and, fed ourselves. And then we had to, I started going after government contracts for real estate,
Okay.
state. I went after a Freddie Mac contract, state contract, city contract for real estate, anything I could do
Wow.
to bring money through this business because traditional sales, I didn't know anybody. So it wasn't like I had a circle of influence that I could start calling people to say, well, let me help you with your real estate. No, I had to find new business.
Right.
And at the same time, I still had those rental properties that I purchased when I got here. Thank God.
Okay.
Because eventually we had to move into one of those properties when times got difficult over those 2 years. We eventually moved back into our main house.
Okay.
But I rented the main house to the state to make 3 times what I needed for the mortgage. I'm telling you, when you're in survival and that creativity has to get going because I could not see. I couldn't see I was going to go and live with the mother-in-law. That was the main thing. I was like, this is just not going to happen. How are we all going to fit in this, women's apartment? This is not going to work. I didn't want to go back to New York. I just didn't want to do it. So fast forward now, I think over the years, we started opening up franchise-like offices, people who understood and liked our niche, because our niche in the business was working with investors, because that's what I
Mm-hmm.
was.
Okay.
So I brought the investor niche into the market that I was working in as our brokerage. That's all we did. So
Okay.
not only was I teaching my agents how to invest, that was my target of the type of client. So I would work with attorneys, I'd work with all kinds of investors who did not want to manage their own portfolio. So I quickly
Got it.
became a portfolio manager for them. So it was not only buy the property, I'm like, you buy the property and we'll also manage the property, and then we'll run numbers and keep doing this so that it makes sense, and you keep doing what you're doing so that they're leveraging me to build their portfolio. And
Wow.
so that's what opened me up to that part. And the next thing I knew, I was working with developers, learning the development side, because again, that 13-year-old girl who picks everything apart was doing that with the developers. And what I
Wow.
found early on is that the developers, if I could find them money,
Mm-hmm.
then I could be their girl. And
Okay.
so I would go
Yes.
into them, get offering financing for their projects, not to sell their listings. And
Wow.
so one developer would introduce me to the next, and then it just kept happening. And then some of the developers, I would say, okay, no, I'll also do your sales, and I'd run their sales division. And that's kind of how it happened.
Oh,
And then we
wow.
opened up in Missouri, Kansas.
Mm-hmm.
We opened an office in Georgia. We have one in San Diego. We're in Panama
Okay.
City Beach, Florida. And then, of course, we're doing
Yes.
the developments that we're doing in Punta Cana, Dominican Republic now. So we
Yes.
also have a team over there. So,
Oh, all right, Auntie.
yeah.
Well, I'm gonna stop you. Don't give up all the nuggets just yet. Let me stop
I
you for
mean,
a second.
well, yeah, that's what I tell you. You have to stop me because, it's a lot going on in the story.
It really is. It really is. So let's go ahead. We're going to take a quick break. I hope y'all are out there with y'all notepads. I brought my notes because every time she talks, she drops some type of nugget. So we'll come back and we'll talk a little bit more about this international development that she's gotten into.